Hey everyone, welcome to God in the Marketplace. I'm your host, Andy Esposito. Today we have Rachel Benight, who is a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and NASM certified personal trainer. She also has a master's degree in science and nutrition and dietetics from the University of Central Oklahoma. So I'm really excited to have you on the show. I've heard a lot of great things, people you've helped. I've talked to some of the people that you've helped, from a health standpoint. I've also heard awesome things about you reaching people through your gym and through what you do. So lots of good things I've heard, and I just want to get into it and hear all about it. So first things first, let's hear about, you have this business called Nourished by Rachel. Let's hear, is that something that was a passion of yours? Did God lead you down this? Let's talk about how that all started.
First of all, thank you for having me.
Yes.
Glad to be here. So when I originally went to school to be a dietitian, I did not have the dreams of starting my own business, or if I did, I didn't have the confidence to do it. And so first out of school, I worked for a functional medicine
Oh, okay.
practice for about 4 years. And that's really where I learned so much about how food affects our bodies and how food really has the power to heal the body.
Yes.
And really had to really kind of unlearned everything that I learned in school and relearned a new way. Because in school we're very much learned like chronic disease management, versus how do we actually get down to like the root of what's driving disease in the body and use nutrition and lifestyle to change it.
Yeah.
And so while I worked at that functional medicine clinic, that's where I just learned all about hormones and gut health and just the power of food and nutrition. So but at the same time, I also started developing a lot of obsession around my health and around food. And while I didn't necessarily, was never officially diagnosed with an eating disorder, it was definitely something that I could check all the boxes, and ended up going through therapy and got to this place where I was like, okay, like I have this passion for nutrition. I have this passion for health. But I feel like I'm putting an unhealthy standard on not only myself, but also on the clients that I'm working with. And so I really just kind of did some, soul searching to decide like, what's my next step? And that's when I thought, I see this problem in the functional medicine space of kind of this obsession again around health and leading women especially to think that everything has to be perfect and clean eating and, follow all the food rules, and they weren't necessarily getting better.
Sure.
And most of the women who came to me wanted to lose weight. Like that was, yes, they had all these other things like, I have fatigue. I have, maybe they had some type of hormonal imbalance or gut health issue, but their main concern was, I want to lose this weight.
Yes.
And I found just like the typical recommendations weren't really working for people. So I thought, there has to be something better. There has to be something different. So fast forward to 2019. And I started my own business.
Right before COVID?
Right before COVID.
Yeah. Good timing.
Yeah. Fortunately, so I started off, I thought that I was going to do it in person and actually have like an office space. But then I ended up deciding to go and just go virtual, which was the best decision I could have made because the health space has really moved.
There's a lot of MDs that are doing that. You pay monthly, you get on a Zoom call, tell them what your symptoms are. Like there's a lot of people going that direction. So,
and I'm able to see people I have a client in California, I have a client in New York, I have someone in my group program that's in Canada. I mean, I have people that are literally all over the United States.
That's awesome.
In Canada. So anyway,
Canada needs help.
Yeah. So it started my business, and really my main focus was to help women, and this is what it is today. Help women learn how to lose weight, but in a way that they're not having to follow a restrictive diet. And I find that the approach that I take with them, the strategies I teach them, helps fix all the other issues too. With my one-on-one clients, we do a lot deeper of a dive into, we do hormone testing, blood work, gut testing. And so I can actually uncover, like, is there something going on in a deeper level that's causing you to have a hard time losing weight?
Yeah.
And oftentimes that is the case.
Yeah. It's so needed. Like, and you help men too, right? Because I think Brad is who I spoke to, and he was saying that you helped him. He had some gut issue, and you were able to help him get him back on track. It is, and I'm not against I have friends that are doctors, right? Like my neighbor's a doctor. We get along great. We have fun discussions all the time. I feel like when it comes to like if I got in a car accident, I need to be pieced back together. There's no better place in the world than America for that to happen, right? I think when it comes to autoimmune disease, cancer, diabetes, like there's just, I don't know, I just feel like they fall short and they don't ever want to get to the root. They just want to treat the symptom. And there's such a need for what you're doing out there. And I myself had some health issues going on, and I didn't know you at the time, but I ended up going to see, she was an MD and a naturopathic doctor as well. And she was able to, she did several tests on me from stool tests to,
It's one of my favorites.
yeah,
Not
those are
science though.
I hated it because you have to like do it several days, put it in the freezer,
Yeah.
mail it out. It was terrible. But I love the fact that they're trying to find the root instead of just guessing and saying, all right, here's the protocol for this symptom and that kind of stuff. So that's awesome that you're in it. So is this like a passion of yours? Because you have that, but you also have did you have a gym or do you still have a gym? What's that part?
Yeah, so I don't own it. Well, I have a gym at my house. I
Okay.
don't like own a gym with members. But
Okay.
my husband and I have been involved in CrossFit
Okay.
for going on 6 years now, and we just really the reason I stay plugged in is because of the community.
Got it.
I love CrossFit. I'm very competitive, but I
Yeah.
tend to go a little overboard
Yeah.
with CrossFit, so I've had some injuries.
Yeah.
But the community aspect has just been
Yeah.
the best part.
And we'll get into how that whole turned into a Bible study, and we'll get into that in a little bit. What are some what would be some reasons or some issues that women or men might be having that they should probably reach out to you? Like lists. I mean, if there's 5 major ones, or maybe there can be 10, 20, whatever it is. But
So the top things that I see, one of the very most common things that I see is hypothyroidism in women and men, but primarily.
does that cause fatigue and
Yep. So hypothyroidism is going to cause fatigue.
weight
It's going to
gain?
cause weight gain. It's going to cause brain fog, sleep disturbances. For women, it can cause irregular menstrual cycles, sometimes difficulty getting pregnant. So typically, the most common reason for hypothyroidism is going to be something called Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune condition. And so the thing about autoimmune disease is there's a lot of stuff that we can do from a nutrition lifestyle perspective. So typically we're going to be doing gut testing, hormone testing. So that's usually the first thing that
Is the gut testing that you guys do, is it to find out what good bacteria they're missing?
Yeah, so what good bacteria might be missing, and then also if there's any what's called opportunistic or bad bacteria. So
Okay.
bad bacteria can drive inflammation or an
Yeah.
immune response.
I've had it. Yeah.
Yeah, it can also, that stool test also looks at like, are they producing enough digestive enzymes to break down food and actually absorb nutrients?
Mhm.
It can also screen for deeper rooted conditions like inflammatory bowel disease or celiac disease. And so it really just gives us, the gut is like the gateway to our entire
Sure.
health, our
Yeah.
entire immune system. So I really like to do, even if someone comes to me with something like, they're like, I had perfect digestion. I'm like, I
Yeah.
still want to do a gut test because it's going to give me a lot of
Yeah.
information.
I read that it's like your immune system is also, the majority of your immune system surrounds your gut.
About 80%.
Yeah. So that's huge. So
So I'll see a lot of individuals with autoimmune conditions. Brad, was one of them. who
Yeah.
I helped. And then I've had a few clients, and obviously I don't specialize in fertility by any means.
Mhm.
But I've had a few female clients, of course, who were having difficulty getting pregnant. And through working together, we were able to get
Yeah.
them pregnant. And
Yeah.
one woman ended up having twins.
See, and that's huge, especially like with us. Like we're both passionate about God. We're also passionate in the Bible and Scripture. We're also passionate about health and food. And I remember the story when I was in Bible school. There was a lady who couldn't get pregnant, and we prayed for her, right? But she also went and saw a nutritionist who helped her body get back into line. And she was able to get pregnant. And I think about like God could have healed her, right? But if there was something that she was doing or not doing, it would have hindered her again. Like sometimes it's not healing that we need, even though God can heal us, but it's also wisdom. Like we need wisdom, and God has called people like you and other people, has given them wisdom on how to get the body to operate the way He designed it. And And so that's huge. So hyperthyroidism, digestion issues, fertility issues. What are a few other ones that?
Yeah, I would say the biggest is weight loss. I mean, just
Okay.
because in our society, I think I would say 80% of the people coming to me are looking for
Yeah.
that. But again, it usually is a deeper rooted.
Yeah.
If they've tried losing weight on their own, it's usually a deeper rooted issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say those are probably the most common things that I
Yeah.
see. Of course, there's always these, strange outliers. Like I have one woman I'm working with osteoporosis, and she's pretty young to have it. So just working through how.
Mineral, is there like a mineral deficiency in that would cause that, or?
Yeah, I mean, for her, I think it has more so to do with her hormones because if a
Okay.
female's not making enough estrogen, that can harm bone health. She has been on various medications, so
Ah, yeah,
increased her likelihood of having osteoporosis, and
sure.
unfortunately, she ended up developing it. So working together to help
Yeah.
her build muscle and strengthen her bones.
And you're good at building muscle too, right? Like if
One of
you
my
for the
favorite things.
for if you're watching, not listening, Rachel is probably she just had a baby too, so keep that in mind. But even before her baby and now, like she's probably just as jacked and ripped as I am. So
I hope I'm not as ripped as you are. I would very manly if I had.
no, but you're in really good shape, and that is something that's so. There's I want to talk about something that you mentioned earlier is that how there's so much information. I talked to you about this before too. About there's so much information out there, YouTube and Instagram and all these shorts about health and what to eat, what not to eat, and this diet and that diet, and how about your blood type? If you're the A and you shouldn't eat meat and blah blah blah. Like there's so much out there, it can overwhelm you. Like it can stress people out. And I made a post one time about as much as I'm into health and fitness, like we need to have a healthy balance too, and not and you think we're in faith, but it really could be foolishness, and but you still want to have the word in your heart. Like, and I made a post one time about how Jesus, like back then, Jesus healed the sick, and there were a lot of sick. And back then, you didn't have processed foods. Like people ate off the land and killed their own meat. Like the lamb or whatever it was that they killed was most likely back then grown around them. It wasn't like how it is now with processed foods. But people were still getting sick, right? Talking about like there are times when it's not a food thing; it's like a soul thing, right? And this girl, um, um, this girl that we know messaged us and was like, "I needed that." Because I also talked about like being overwhelmed with all the information because I was dealing with that, right? Um, and talk about that. Talk about how in this day and age, with all the access, the over amount of information that's available out there, let's talk about what are some things that people can do so that doesn't happen to people. Like they're getting overwhelmed. How do they know what the right diet is for them? Like, can you help with that too?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is there's never going to be a one size fits all recommendation. Like it very much, someone's nutrition very much has to be personalized to them. But obviously, not everyone has the capabilities of working with a professional. And so, usually, the first thing I will tell people is one of the biggest focuses that you can have is eating more whole food. Like,
Okay.
cut out the process. That doesn't mean you can never have sugar or should never have processed food. Like, we also don't want to go in the opposite extreme, like I did whenever I
Hmm.
first started in this field and obsess about
Yeah.
everything. But the more whole foods you can eat, the better off you're going to be because I truly believe that God made food with the intention of nourishing our bodies. And so if
Yes.
we're eating something that God has said was good for consumption,
Yeah.
then we should be good,
Take that. Yeah.
Obviously, there are some exceptions to that, but typically with a lot of these, like the Candida diet, all of these different diets that are out.
Vegan,
Yeah, vegan.
paleo, keto, all
Yeah.
this stuff. Yeah.
It's not customized to each individual.
Right.
We were just chatting about it before we got on here, how
Oh,
like you've found a way of eating that's been really helpful for you,
yeah.
but for, women that might not be the case. And so going back to just some like simple things that people can start with is eating more whole food. And then I would say the biggest one that I see over and over and over again is men and women, but especially women not eating enough protein. Um, and because whenever I first start working with people, I have them track their food for a week just to get a good idea of what's it actually look like.
In regards to energy or
Yeah, in
okay.
regards to energy, in regards to keeping them full, to prevent them from like doing
Yeah.
mindless snacking, to keep their blood sugar
Yeah.
stable so they're sleeping better, so they can build muscle.
Even like vegans, like if you're a vegan, fine, but make sure your protein, beans, protein shakes.
Yeah.
There's other areas you can get
Yeah, so if
protein.
someone's vegan, we have to be really intentional about getting enough from
Yeah.
non-animal proteins.
Yeah. I'm not a vegan, but I take vegan protein.
Mhm.
The complete chain of it has like complete chain of amino acids for protein. I like the way I feel after I drink. Like I don't know why whey just kind of it's one of those. No, and I feel like the vegan one's lighter for me. I try to yeah, it's one of those things where we can talk about health all day long.
Yeah.
Can men see, like, what about if someone's low in testosterone with men? Are you able to help in that area, or is it more just kind of
Yeah, so typically, actually, and I don't think my husband would mind if I shared this. He's probably been my best like test subject when it comes to men, and I experienced
sure?
with him. I mean, he's tried every back before I became more balanced.
Yeah,
We joke I had him do something called the potato diet, where he literally ate potatoes for
really?
5 days straight. That's all he ate. You could have as many potatoes as you want, but you couldn't put anything on. It was just potatoes.
Wow.
If that says like how extreme I used to be.
What do the potatoes do?
So the idea is that whenever you could only eat them cooked, and then they had to have been cooled for 24 hours.
Uh-huh.
So when potatoes are cooled, they develop something called resistant starch. That resistant starch feeds the good bacteria in your gut. And it also helps prevent your blood sugar from spiking. Yeah, for
Wow.
how like healthy,
Yeah.
like nerd out.
No, but I'm like that. My wife makes fun of me. I'll be in bed reading like clinical trial reports and the results of certain clinical trials up till like midnight and stuff. So I like that side.
Potato diet. So anyway, all to say is, whenever I first got into functional medicine and functional nutrition, we did some hormone testing on him, and he did have low testosterone. And so from like a nutrition perspective, lifestyle perspective, one of the best ways to boost testosterone in men is going to be lifting weights,
Yeah.
and then making sure that they're getting enough what are called macronutrients to actually create hormones in the body.
Yeah.
So protein and fats, but specific types of fats. So that's where I think working with someone and actually like developing like a custom
Yeah.
like nutrition plan
Yep.
can be really helpful. And there are supplements that can help boost testosterone, but I would say usually it's not enough to like really move the needle.
Yeah.
It's going to be more lifestyle.
I've had mine tested. I'm not low. I'm not like super high. And so I'm like, I'm not one of these guys that I want to do everything natural, as much natural as I can. I know some people like rush out and get, hormone replacement therapy and all this kind of stuff, but I try to do it with food, intermittent fasting, working out on a fasted, is what I try to do. And if I turn 50 and it's still not working, it's low, then maybe I'll think of that. But I just feel like my approach is do it as natural as you can in regard for longevity purposes, So
Definitely.
so that's awesome. So you have a lot out there that you can do to help people in the health world arena, personal health, stuff like that. Let's get into the spiritual aspect of it, because you're like a little evangelist, which I love. You talk to me about how this gym that you guys had going, this CrossFit gym, how that turned into a Bible study, and how you used what you, not just in that, but overall, how do you use what you do as a platform to reach people? Because at the end of the day, like, that's what we live for, right? Like, we have our jobs, we have the things that we're passionate about, but at the end of the day, it's about reaching people, advancing the kingdom of God. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I see kind of two separate areas of living missionally in my life. My actual like business, Nourished by Rachel, which I'll talk on that, but then also our involvement in CrossFit. So
Awesome.
before we're at a new gym now because our old gym closed, unfortunately, after COVID. The business just wasn't able to pick back up.
Yeah.
But the gym that we were at before COVID, we had developed just a lot of friends within that space. CrossFit's a very like community-based form of exercise. And really, it was whenever City Church started doing the micro church,
Yes.
really pushed for that. My husband and I were talking about how like we kind of already have one, because the people that we were going to CrossFit with, we had started doing yoga and like church online together
Yeah.
on Sunday like afternoons, and we would just all come together. And people who like I had would never have expected to like come to church would come to this
Yeah.
yoga, and then we saw lots of people end up getting baptized. They started going to Transformation Church. Yeah, I mean, it was really incredible to see
They were getting baptized at church or like at the.
at Transformation
Oh, okay.
Church. Yeah, before Transformation Church moved out to South Tulsa,
Yeah.
and they were in the North Tulsa location.
Mhm.
We got to witness actually one of the women in our gym who had been very I don't want to say against Christianity by any means, but very much it was not something that she was raised in. She had never
Yeah.
been really exposed to going to church. And so to see her just completely like surrender her life to Jesus was
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
And then it just continued to just like domino into other people in the gym. And eventually because we were attending City Church at the time, a lot of those individuals started going to Transformation. And so we would still see them and do the yoga with the like live stream, but they were all going as a
Yeah.
group to Transformation.
Hey, as long as they're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so what happened was at that point we realized, okay, like this is becoming a pretty like um this is becoming something in this gym, like something is
Yeah.
happening. And so we created like a core group of us that would get together and
Yeah.
just kind of pray for the gym and pray for opportunities in the gym. And then unfortunately, whenever COVID happened, a lot of that disbanded.
Yeah.
And so now we are at a new gym. And actually, it's funny that you bring that up because just the other day, I got a text from one of the girls in the gym asking if I would be interested in us starting a Bible study
At what gym?
at the new gym.
The new gym. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So that's something we're working towards doing. But ultimately, Stefan and I, our mission when we go into that gym is just to be a light and
Yeah.
share the love of Christ with people, and just be really intentional with our relationships.
Yeah.
We've tried to invite a lot of like the gym owner and his wife and who are believers, and then just various couples. We try to invite them over for dinner and just be really intentional. Now
Yeah.
we have a baby; it's a little bit harder to go out.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so with the gym, it's really more just like being present and developing those relationships. And then in my business, I would say where I really see the opportunity for ministry is when I get in those one-on-one coaching situations, especially with women. Obviously, with men, there's an
Yeah.
opportunity for ministry, but I feel like with women, they open up and become very vulnerable.
Oh, yeah. They're dealing with symptoms. There's fear, there's worry, there's anxiety.
Yeah.
And it's like a great opportunity to just, whether it's praying with them or sharing things with them that kind of comfort them. But
Yeah. And so I've definitely been able to share my faith and pray with clients. And I would say the majority of clients know where I stand from a faith perspective.
yeah.
So while it's not like part of the daily work that I do with clients,
Mhm.
when the opportunity arises, I definitely try to take it. But then I also think about just the opportunity that I try to make for my clients, and that is helping them move beyond the struggles that they're having in their health so that they can live a fuller life.
Yeah.
Um, and ultimately, I believe that God gave me those talents and
Yeah.
that knowledge to use for that purpose.
Not just did he give you the talents, the wisdom, and the knowledge, right? But you also have like an open line to him. So like if you have a client that you've tried some things on and
Yes,
it's not working.
I've prayed. I'm like, God, help.
Well, yes.
And
What is going on? And he can, I mean, he's all knowing and he can reveal that to you. And it's like, and then, you go and do it. And so that's another reason if you're listening, you want to have someone who can hear from God,
I
but
do
also
pray for
has,
my clients who, I mean, even the ones who I've been able to like figure
Yeah.
it out, but the clients who I can't figure out, I lay in bed at night and I think
Yeah.
I just pray like, God, please give me wisdom. I want to be able to help them.
yeah.
So
Yeah. And he's called you into that. That's awesome. And what does it look like when, in your, like, do you have a staple in your, like, I would say like a biblical principle that drives you or something that, that God did in you, whether it was a long time ago or a word or something in you that kind of drives you to do what you do, whether it's to help people or whether it's in ministry or in your practice.
I know that this analogy or the scriptures probably used a lot in the health space, but I really do believe it to be true. And that's our bodies are a temple. So
Yeah.
we should offer our bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and
Mhm.
pleasing to God. And this is our spiritual act of worship. And I think that scripture can be taken a lot of different ways, but I truly believe that whenever we are taking care of our physical bodies,
Yeah.
it's amazing how much more um, energy and just how much more we have to pour out. If
Yeah.
someone is not taking care of their physical body, they're usually going to feel tired, unmotivated, run down, potentially deal with, some mental health issues.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot harder for them to like live to their fullest potential.
Yeah. If God calls someone to do something and they can't because they're physically tired or sick and don't have the energy, like, there's a need for that. I'm, you know, with being in ministry, and then getting into the marketplace, like, and I don't know if you watched the intro, but in my intro, I talked about how like what started it for me was this. I turned on when God was dealing with me with God in the marketplace. I didn't know what it was at the time. And I turned on the show. I couldn't sleep one night. And I turned on the show, and he was talking about how in the last days, God is going to you're going to see marketplace ministries explode all over the world. And it's not going to be revival will break out, not from like a big ministry or big minister, but through people in the highways and the byways that God has called. And he said that in the book of Acts, which, I've always known this and read this, but never really stood out to me was that in the book of Acts, like all the ministry took place in the marketplace. There was no church. Church wasn't there yet, right? And we are coming into a day and age where people don't want to go to church anymore, especially like Pastor Matt was just saying in the episode when he was on that this is the largest growing denomination right now are the nuns, the ones that check. I'm not part of any affiliation. I'm not part of any church. Like, and this generation like doesn't feel a need. They find community in other ways. I think it's gonna end how it started, which is in the marketplace. It's funny that you said that verse because health started for me when I was at church, and our church invited this guy, Dr. Jordan Rubin. Do you know who he is? He wrote The Great Physician's Diet.
Okay, I'm familiar with that.
Um, and that's exactly what the verse he started. He said, our body is the temple of God. He said, you wouldn't come we had a beautiful church, brand new, beautiful church. He said, you wouldn't come and dump garbage on this altar and ruin this beautiful church, would you? He's like, well, our body's a temple. Why put garbage in? And that's what started for me. I was like, yeah, why would I do that? And in my early 20s, I worked out and ate whatever I want. And I was a lot heavier than I am now, but I would eat like 2 tuna sandwiches before my workout, 3 or 4 chicken sandwiches after my workout. It was all about just getting big, and I didn't care what I put in my body. And now it's like I work out and I eat right for longevity. I want to be here to make sure that my children's children grow up godly and righteous and carry on, the godly lineage, because it started with me. Like my parents came here from Italy; they were Catholic, and so I want to be around for a while, and that's the main reason. I want to complete what God called me to do, and so God has called you to make sure that other people fulfill their calling, and that their lives don't end short because of things that that they're either putting in their body or not putting in their body. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, I would say since having a child of my own,
Hmm.
I've developed a deeper passion for moms
Hmm.
and helping them do exactly what you just described, because I think so many moms are running around like not taking care of themselves because they're prioritizing their kids, which obviously,
Kids, family, yep,
yeah, but at the same time, we can't show up 100% for our family if we're not taking care of
yeah,
ourselves. So I feel like while I am if someone comes to me, I think I can help them. I obviously will help them. But
yeah.
I would say I'm most passionate about helping moms at this point.
Yeah. What would you tell someone who's listening and they're like, man, I haven't found my thing yet. I want to feel fulfilled. I want to do what God's called me to do. If they're struggling to find that and they're struggling to, be effective in doing whatever it is that God's called them to do or in reaching people, what would you say to someone like that?
So the first thing I would say is I think a lot of times we put way too much emphasis on like what's my
Hmm.
unique calling, when I
Yeah.
think ultimately our calling is to live a life that is glorifying to God
Yes.
in everything that we do, even in the mundane, day to day things. And so I think the first thing is getting into a place where our ultimate heart's desire is to bring God glory in everything that we do.
Yeah.
And then after we've gotten to that place, coming to God and saying, God, whatever you have for me, like I'm going to be obedient to that. I know
It's huge.
for me, like I knew that I had like I had this like passion brewing inside of me, but I didn't know what it would look like. And I actually contacted Jim Moss, and was like, "Hey, I'm kind of thinking about starting my own business. Do you think you could help me with this?" And he did,
Mhm.
and I helped him with some health stuff in exchange, but I didn't know what it was gonna look like. I just
Yeah.
knew I needed to be obedient to
Yeah.
this feeling that I had inside of.
Everyone that we've interviewed so far has said the exact same thing. If you have a passion, God put that passion there, and to follow that, like start off with that. Um, and that's huge, especially in a time where there's a lot of bad doctrine out there about being in the will of God, you know? And there's a lot of people, because of that bad doctrine, they're afraid of, well, what if I pursue this and it's not God's will? Like, God's will is not a time and a place, right? Like, God's will is one, that you accept Christ as your Lord and Savior, two, that you renew your mind, you know, you have a kingdom mindset. This is the will of God concerning you, then all things you give thanks. Thanksgiving is a kingdom mindset. So, that was huge too, because I always felt like, I came from that background where they were like, "Well, you're gonna miss it, and you're outside of God's will." And I was like, because I thought ministry was it for me, but God had other plans. And so, um, yeah, I'm glad that you said that, because first and foremost, we're to have a relationship with God, glorify Him, and out of that overflows into every other area of our life. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. What would you say? How do you stay God conscious? Right, like life is so busy, the world is chaotic, social media, there's all these things pulling our attention. You're a mom, there's all this stuff going on. How do you go to work and stay God conscious and be conscious of the people that are around you? Like it starts off great, right? In the morning, we have devotion, we pray. I go out, I'm like, Lord, use me today. If anyone needs a word, if I have to pray with anyone, please use me. But then work gets busy and you're out there and you forget. How do you stay God centered, God focused, God conscious in this day and age?
I would totally agree that it's very, very easy to get sidetracked,
Hmm.
especially in this day and age and with owning an online business. Trying to stay on top of social media
Yeah,
can be a major, time zap.
sure.
So the first thing I would say is I'm definitely not perfect at it by any means. Um, but I have some like specific like habits and routines as a part of my day and a part of my week that I've intentionally put in place so that I am able to stay conscious
Hmm.
of like my greater, deeper purpose.
Yeah,
So the first one, of course, is like waking up in the morning, and I actually have so I keep and I have all my clients do this. I have a little habit tracker where I write down for the week the different habits that I'm tracking, and then I put like a red dot if I did it and a green dot if
yeah,
I didn't.
yeah.
And one of the habits on there is no phone for the first 30 minutes of my
Oh,
morning.
I love that.
And that's been a new one. That's been it since the beginning of this year because I found that the first thing I did was check my email, check my
Hmm.
Instagram, and I'm like, no, like I don't want to start my day
Yeah,
with that. I want to start my day with God. And
yeah.
so no phone for the first 30 minutes. So that helps me set the day off
Hmm.
right. And then I also have built into my calendar a daily walk because I need the walk. It's good for my son to get out and get fresh
Yeah,
air. Like, so during that walk is when I usually will spend time in prayer, or
yeah,
listening to a sermon, or doing some type of intentional,
yeah,
time with God. So I would say those are the two big ones.
yeah,
And then of course, just like that, stopping, um, taking a moment and just trying to recenter myself.
yeah.
A lot of times, if I have back-to-back appointments, then I'll usually take, even if it's just like 2 minutes in between an appointment to like breathe and just try to remember, like, okay, like,
Why am I doing this?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
That's huge. The Jews are really good about that too. Like they have morning prayers that they do, afternoon prayers and evening prayers. Um, and we serve the living God. So
yeah,
it's kind of
I
like,
think building it to like having it on a schedule,
yeah, reminder on your phone too, like to just, hey, take a break and prayer, do a quick devotion in the middle of your day. Because it can get away from you. Bill Johnson said this one time, and I absolutely loved it. And he said, if you walked with a bird, a parrot on your shoulder, right? Like you cannot walk without being conscious of that bird. And he said, God sent the Holy Spirit to walk alongside us. And he said, when you understand that you walk under an open heaven and that the Holy Spirit's in you, like you know that he's always there. And it doesn't take much to talk with him because he's right there. And I try to do that. Like, if there's a roadblock in my business or something that I need to know, or if I just need to disconnect because I'm getting frustrated, it's noted that you can he's not in a temple anymore. He lives within us, so we can just stop and have a moment. So that's awesome that you do that. If this is our last question, is there any books that you can, I always tell someone to recommend one book, but if you want, you have more, that helps you in this area, because you are effective in what you do and reaching people and being God conscious. And is there any book that has helped you that you would recommend people? Or if you can't think of one in that, maybe in the health space, how to live a healthier lifestyle, any books that you would recommend?
So I think this kind of goes into both. And even though it isn't a like specifically spiritual book, I think
Mhm.
we can apply the principles to our spiritual life. And that's the
Mhm.
book Atomic Habit.
Oh, Atomic Habits. Yeah.
Larry, I think.
Yep.
Have you read it?
I have not, but I've heard
I'm
about it.
surprised you haven't for how like goal driven,
Goal driven, motivated. Yeah.
highly
Yep.
motivated. So anyway, in that book, he just talks about the power of habits
Mhm.
and how how we spend our minutes and our hours,
Yeah.
our days, or how we will spend, the rest of our life.
Yep.
And so just like in our health, developing daily habits that we're practicing,
Yeah.
anyone can follow, a nutrition plan or a fitness plan for, 3 months,
Yep.
but it's the daily, once we make it part of our daily lifestyle, that's going to change our life. And I would say the same for our spiritual lives,
Yeah.
and creating those daily habits. And so the book Atomic Habits really helped me learn the power of habits and how to develop them effectively.
I've heard a lot of great things about it. I haven't read it yet. I think I have another one of his books that he wrote. But that is huge because it has to be a mindset change, right? Like you can't, in order to form a good habit, it has to be consistent. You have to understand why. I haven't drank pop in over 20 something years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But all it was a video. Someone showed me a video. It was like I don't know if he was a doctor or what, but he showed a video of what pop does to your insides.
Tested.
Yeah. And for me, it just made me think differently about pop. And that was it for me. Just one video. And I changed the way I thought about what I was putting in my body. And so I think in order to form those habits, you have to think differently. It's not, a diet will only last you until you get frustrated and tired, right? But if you change the way you think about what you're putting in your body, then it can be lifestyle, which would be forever. So that's awesome. It was great having you on. How can people find you, reach you? Your website is nourishedbyrachel.com. Okay.
Rachel.com. And then I'm pretty active on Instagram. It's just Rachel Benight.
Okay. Benight.
Benight.
On Instagram. So they can find you on Instagram. They can find you on your website. And your website has all your contact information.
Has
So
information for booking a strategy call with me. Those are complimentary. And then Instagram, I provide just a lot of free nutrition and fitness content.
yeah, you have a blog on there. I read some of that.
Yeah.
Your blog's on the website.
Yeah. Blogs on the website. I've not blogged in a very long time.
But you have good stuff on there on hormones and intermittent fasting. So
thank you. I do. Yes.
Yeah.
That was back before before I really even started my business. I started blogging as a side.
Well, now you got a video blog, because it seems like video blogging is taking off much more than, you can take your blog page and post it on Instagram, but I feel like video blogs now with shorts and all the stuff that's going
short videos, arts.
I don't know. If it wasn't for Josh, I probably wouldn't be able to do this, but yeah, it's kind of crazy. But they'll be able to reach you on there. Well, thanks again for being on the show, and we will put all her information listed below in the link. And feel free to reach out to us as well if you have questions, anyone you think should be on the show. We would love to interact with you as well. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.